Okay, I think we are ready to get started then. That's good. Yeah, okay. So, sorry, we're a smaller group here. Oh, that's good. That's not sorry, right? Like, that's good. You guys can get more personalized attention. I am recording this, so I will be putting up either this recording or the recording for the next session on the Jessup's EdTech channel on YouTube. So that's youtube.com/@JessupEdTech. So you will be able to, if you want to review any of this, you will be able to go back there and look at any of this content. I want to give one other plug for the faculty, all faculty meetings this semester. So last year, and kind of culminating with this, we focused on Google Calendar, and I'll be reviewing this from some of the topics that we covered in all faculty meetings, and then I will be going beyond and doing some more advanced topics that might be useful on Google Calendar. But this coming year, for all faculty meeting, we will be transitioning to another one of Google's online platforms, specifically Google Docs. They have revamped Google Docs a lot over the last several years. There are lots of new features that are coming out. And so again, we'll be going over just like 5-minute things in the all faculty meetings where you can learn new and really, really useful features for Google Docs as we kind of transition to that and use that more often. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into using Google Calendar. Everybody see this okay? So I'm going to be using Google Calendar, and so I want to start by just going through some of the basics. So a lot of this is probably stuff you know, and then we'll slowly get into some of the more interesting stuff. But everybody really should be using Google Calendar as faculty for at least your own faculty stuff, because again, it promotes just organization. It's easier to facilitate meetings between faculty and students when all that information is in there and available and searchable. So the first thing is, how do you create a calendar event to do like your schedule, your academic schedule? So the couple of ways you can do it: there is a create button in the upper left of your screen. You can also just click anywhere, and you don't need to place this precisely, because after you click it, you can still edit the various options. So if it's not exactly the time, and especially if it's a class time, a lot of those class times are at kind of odd minute values anyway, so it wouldn't place it there by default anyway. But you can get in there, and so first thing right off the top, you can put a title. Makes sense. There are some circumstances where it will auto-generate a title, like when we get into creating meetings with people. If you'd already searched for other people's calendars, it'll auto-generate titles in some circumstances, but you can put a title. We're going to skip over this stuff for the time being, and just leave that as default. There are some things you can edit here. You get the same options. I'm going to go ahead and open up that full screen. You go to more options down here, and this gives you kind of a full spread of everything that we can do. So right off the bat, again, we have our title. The next thing that's really important is the date and time. So again, if you didn't place it correctly, or you have some weird times, like you're teaching at 11:40 to 12:55 time slot, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you can edit that here. So you can change the date if it's a single event. You can even change the time zone, and I'll get into a little bit more of that later on, but presumably most people are just here. And your times. If you are doing a regularly scheduled event, that's when we get down to either all day, if it's an all-day event, and you can span multiple days. So like I'll put an event that is for finals week just to remind me. And so I will do all day, and I'll put it from December, what is it this year, like December 1st through December 4th. So you can have an event that spans multiple days if you want. Or you can have just one event, and I'll show you where that appears if you do that. But then you can also change how often it repeats, and there's a couple of kind of options for you. You can have it daily if it's just Monday through Friday, or Monday through Sunday. Weekly on Tuesdays, since that's where I initially clicked on a Tuesday. Monthly on the third Tuesday. But you can go down to custom. So there are these options here, and if you go down to custom, you can choose which days of the week you want it to repeat on, how often, every week, every month, every year, if you're putting in like, your anniversary, you want it to repeat once every year on a specific day. And then an ending time period based on either never ends or on a certain date, it will just not create. This date here does not necessarily need to match the day that you're doing it. So you can do like a Monday event and then put the ending date on a Friday. And that just means that it won't go on to the next Monday after that, or after a certain number of occurrences. So, this is a weekly meeting for the next 14 weeks for school. You can do that. Although when you do that, you need to be careful. If you cancel an event, it won't automatically generate another one for a certain number of occurrences. I generally don't do this number of occurrences. I find that can mess things up, but you can do it that way. And so it'll auto-generate that number of occurrences before it terminates. So let's go, whoops. So done there. Other things that you can do, add a conferencing. So a lot of meetings, more and more meetings these days, going remote. Here's where you would add those. If by default it has Google Meet, because this is a Google platform, if you have the Workspace extension or app installed for Zoom, it'll give you that option. If you're using a school-based PC, they automatically install the Workspace app on your on the device. If you're using a personal device, even if you're logged into Jessup, it may not have that, and so you may need to click over here, click that plus. It'll take you into the Workspace marketplace to get that add-on, and then you can have the Zoom add-on, in which case this will now be an option to auto-generate a Zoom meeting. There's some more in-depth stuff we could do, but that's kind of its own, that would be its own talk. So if you want to get into the weeds about changing specific settings or things like that, we can have another conversation. But you can add those meetings here. You can add a location. This can be a map-based location. So if you're going to have an off-campus meeting and you want it at the Chili's down the street or whatever, you can put in that address and people will see that when they get the invite. You can also just add in stuff here. So I'll often put like, for office hours, I'll just type my office. So that's not a real location as it were in terms of what Google understands, but anybody that gets the calendar invite will see that and they'll know I sent the invite, hopefully, and so they'll understand what that means. Notifications, this will be a notification you either get on your computer, or if you have notifications enabled for the Google, the calendar app, like on your phone, it will send a notification in your phone. And so you can have that set to, however, prior to the actual event you want. 10 minutes is default here, but you can have it hours, days, or whatever. And you can add further notifications if you want it to ping you multiple times as you get closer to the end. One thing that's really useful is color coding in these calendars. So you can add labels. Oops, I'm clicking on the wrong screen. So you can add labels. So by default, you can add colors. And so then when it shows up on your calendar, you will see a bunch of different colors. They're all part of the same calendar. Right now, we're only adding to the default user calendar, but it'll show up as different colors to give you kind of just, look at what that looks like. This is my own personal calendar. And so you can say I have all these different colors for things that are going on. Red is the default for events that are given to me that I just accept. But then I have, my son's soccer stuff. This one's in purple. I need to change that one to something else. Church-related events I have in blue, so that if I'm just looking real quickly, I can see, okay, these are all meetings that have been sent to me, not that I've created, because I have a different color for that. And things like that. And then when we get into, next week when the school starts, we can see different calendar. Yellow is for my school-related stuff or classroom-related stuff. So you can see that. So these can be really useful, and you can set colors and labels. So you can change the color, or if you just want to be consistent, sometimes you'll add a label and say, like this is for class, class schedule. Class schedule. And now I'll just know that from now on, anything that's related to class schedule is going to be orange. And so that'll appear as now a color, but with a label so that I'm consistent in its usage. This is what I will use from now on for class schedule. Busy default. This is really important for visibility, and we'll talk about that. Visibility by default, if you're using adjusted provision account, unless you've done something to change it, it should appear by as in terms of privacy. So that's this label right here. So private event means that once it's in your calendar, when other people search for your calendar, they'll see the time is blocked out. If you have it labeled busy, they'll see that time is blocked. So they'll see there's something there in your calendar, but they won't be able to see what it is. All it'll just have a label that says busy, and they won't otherwise know. If you change that to public, that's public within the domain of Jessup still, so it's not like random people just out in the world are searching your calendar. But public within the Jessup domain means if another instructor searches it and it's public, not only will they be able to see that there's something in your calendar, but they'll be able to see the title and location and other information that you've added to that calendar event. So for example, I put all my class schedules in as public, so that when a student searches, they see, oh, you know, he's teaching at this time. It's not just a random blocked out thing, like he's teaching this class at this time. It's also helpful for faculty. Like if, you know, my dean really needs to get a hold of me, they can see, oh, he's in ACAT 206 at this time. He's teaching, you know, whatever course. So I will make certain things public, but you generally have to be proactive on that. By default, this is good privacy practice. By default, it just defaults to busy. So you can put stuff in, but nobody will be able to see what that is. What this busy or free is whether or not, essentially, it's whether or not it actually shows up when people search. So sometimes you want to set yourself a reminder, like I have this thing going on. I just need to know. It's not that it prevents me from doing anything else, but I need to know it's there. So sometimes like family things I'll put in there, like, you know, my wife is doing this thing today. I don't need to go, but I want to know, you know that's there. So I'll switch it to free. Then it doesn't show up when other people search my calendar. So it's basically there just as a reminder for me, and only I can see it. It won't prevent other people from sending invites, anything like that. Again, the default should be busy. And down here, you can add a description of your event. You can add documents. So this is becoming more useful. So again, something I highly recommend if you're creating a schedule, if you're sending out an invite, attaching the documents here, like, you know, a PDF handout, something like this morning, the Lectio Divina was attached as an attachment, and that's how they added it here. And there's a couple ways you can attach. You can attach links with this button. You can attach documents. This documents will allow you to either attach documents straight from your Google Drive, or it will allow you to actually upload. So if you have a PDF you actually want to upload, you can click on that, or like a Word document, something that's not necessarily in your Google Drive. But otherwise, you can also search My Drive and go through that and find, you know, documents you want to attach or upload. One thing that's important when you do that is sharing settings. So let's say I do that Google Doc. This doesn't automatically change the shared settings. So if this is a document you've created and didn't share with anybody else, when you click Save the Event, let me do it. It will actually do a pop-up. Oh, you know what? I think I actually did previously share that one. Let me choose a different document. It's not shared. Call this test 2. Okay, so I created that document. Now if I go in here, create that event. Oh, the other thing is I didn't add any invites, so there was nobody to share with. So let's say I add Bradley Wagner, me, because I'm in the EdTech calendar right. So now when I save this, first I'll ask, do I want to notify guests that they've been invited? So say send them and have a whole bunch. And then it'll bring up the sharing settings. And so now it'll say, okay, well, you've attached this document that you haven't changed the sharing settings, so they don't have access to it. Do you actually want to share it to them, and how do you want to share it to them? If you just upload a document, it won't have those. You just upload like a PDF, but if you choose something from your Google Drive, it'll bring up these sharing settings. You're a commentator, educator. You can either say share with these specific people, and again, it'll default to whoever it's added as a guest. You can say just let anybody at Jessup have access to it. Now, what that means is anybody, if they found it, it doesn't mean that it'll actually blast out like an email to everybody at Jessup, hey, look, you have access to this document now. It just means if they found it through the search function or some other way, if somebody passed them on the hyperlink later on, they would be able to have access to it. You can also put don't give access. I do this occasionally where if I'm uploading my own notes for a meeting, I may share some documents, but not others. And so I may, for one document, say, okay, no, don't give access. This is really just a document for me, and I want to have it there for when the meeting starts. I can click on it and bring it out, because sometimes I don't want to spend 5 minutes searching through, oh, what are all the documents I need for this meeting? So I may have put things in here, and they'll be able to see the titles of those documents, but not they won't be able to access them if you click don't give access. And so then that would essentially just be there for the meeting. So we'll cancel that. Incidentally, I wanted to show you again like what an all-day event looks like. Don't give access. If you put an event with a specific set of time hours or whatever, it shows up in the main calendar. Any all-day events will appear up above, or multi-day events will appear up here above the main body of the calendar. And so, sometimes you'll see, like if you subscribe to like a holiday calendar, you'll see the holidays listed up here. When I put in like birthdays and anniversaries, I'll put them into all day events so that they're not down here. They just appear up at the top. Let's see. Any questions so far on what we've covered? Everybody okay with that? So the next phase of this, and if you have questions, just stop me and let me know. The next phase of this is, okay, how do I look at other people's calendars to create, to get this information? So this is over here, search. And so let's say you search me. And then you can see, again, these are events that I was invited to and accepted. They default to not only busy, but also private, because they weren't my event, so I couldn't make them public anyways. So you see, this is a private event. It's, of course, the faculty retreat. But you can see this is my calendar. I'm busy at all these times. I've got something planned. And so if you were looking to set up a meeting with me, you would know, okay, he's not available in any of these spaces. You also see some darkened areas. These are the work hours, and we will talk about that in a moment, how to set those. But then you'll be able to create that event with me, click some blank spot. In this case, when you're searching with individual people, it'll automatically generate that title of the other individual and you. Again, I'm ed tech, so ed. And then you go through the regular event creation. So that's a lot for now. Let's see. Let's go to some just kind of intermediate topics. Again, going really fast because we're already running short of time. Some just really quality of life things is note up here. You can change the view. So you can look by week, day, month, year, or 4-day. So, if you want to just look, maybe you have a lot going on, and so it's really packed in there. So you need to expand just a day view. You can go into day view. Week is what we're at. You can go to month view, where it'll show all the calendar invites, everything that's going on there. Again, that can start to look pretty packed. Year view. I don't use schedule, but then you can also go into 4-day, where it's just kind of the next 4 days. Again, each of these allows you to expand a little bit better, especially if there are multiple overlapping things. It gives you kind of just more room. So you can change that. If you go, now we're going to go into settings and look some of the stuff there. So if you go into settings, first thing, let's change week, start week. Maybe this is just a not nitpicky, but just for some reason, I really like my weeks to start on Monday. That's when I tend to think of, I know traditionally it's Sunday. I tend to think of my week as starting on Monday. And so I change that. So the first day in week view, the first day of the week on my far left will be Monday rather than a Sunday. But you can change it to between those values. In fact, you can even have yours start all the way back on Saturday. And so it just affects in week view what will be the most left-hand day of the week. So I have mine set to Monday. Custom view, you can set a custom view. That'll be like scheduled, so 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, anything like that. Let's see. Oh, show weekends. So you could just have a week view be only 5 days. If you just always wanted to see 5 days, it can give you a little bit more room. So turn that off. You can have it show or not show declined events that are still in your calendar, but that you haven't actually accepted, but you've declined. To then get rid of them further, if you have that option turned on, you actually have to delete the event rather than just decline it. Numbers, display shorter events as a 30-minute. So it will change the size of the block depending on the length. So you can choose this option to basically just, rather than having weird sizes, just everything defaults to a 30-minute view, even if it's not an actual 30-minute event. Grayed out past events. So I have this turned on, so anything that I'm past looks kind of grayed out. And then view calendar side by side in day view for overlapping events. So put them side by side rather than overlapping. Let's see, location time. Oh, let's go down to, let's go to add work hours. Yeah, because I'm getting running out of time. If you want to set your work hours, that doesn't necessarily mean that people will kind of abide by those. But in theory, you can set work hours. You can say on Monday, my work hours and location are the following. Let's see. Here it is. Wait. Oh, sorry, that's a location. I need to enable work hours. There we go. So enable work hours, and then you can do both. So you can say I'm available from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 8:30 to 8:45 or whatever. You can have those works available. If you're looking at somebody else's calendar, well, auto translate based on their what's the word I'm looking for? Time zone. So you want to make sure, basically just make sure your own time zone is set correctly and it should work out, but the calendar will auto translate for that information. And then what the location is. The most common you'll see is more just office or home. So like I'm available from 9 to 5, but I'm at home this day. That's useful. I mean, I've used that when I'm creating events and I know, okay, I can meet with this person, but they're at home this day. So I need to add a Zoom or a Google Meet, a remote meeting to this calendar event because they're not going to be able to show up in person or unspecified. Or you can add other types of locations, but the two just default are office or home. And you can set those work hours. Let's see. It is possible to set your work hours as individual events. So you can set hours and work locations. This would be mostly if you had like weird split days. So like my regular work hours are from 8 to 12 and then 2 to 4 or something, because the default in that settings was just basically single blocks of time. This is what you would use. You'd create the event, but then choose work location and you'd set the hours and the location. So like maybe the first half of the day, you're always here on campus, and then the second half of the day, you're always at home. So if you have some kind of split scenario, you would create those as events and go through that. So all interesting things here. Okay, let's get to, we'll have time, I think, to do like one of these advanced topics, or at least just barely get into it. So the advanced topic I wanted to talk about is a appointment schedule. So really good for if you have lots of appointments, or I mean, I personally am going to be using it for when I'm doing advising in, like 2 months, and I have this 3 or 4 week period of time where I need to add like a bunch of like 20 different one-off meetings with students, not like something I'm scheduling for the semester, but just, I need to advise you. So you want to set up, okay, here are the times I'm available, rather than going back and forth. You want to say, here's when I'm available, pick what works for your schedule. So you can do that. So we're going to just click anywhere. Again, it doesn't really matter where you start. Just click anywhere, then click appointment schedule. Oh, I will say you do need to go into settings and enable this. Maybe they've started enabling it for some people just by default. So you may not need to, but just in case, go down, scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on create appointment schedules instead of appointment slots. They have an old method that they're transitioning from. And again, for a lot of people, it's been available anyways, but just in case, make sure you click on that. But then if we go out here, we click that, we click appointment schedule, setup schedule. Okay, so it brings you to this. It's a lot of those same types of event type scheduling things where you get to choose when, whether it repeats, things like that. So up here at the top, again, you can add a general title. So this might be office hours, or this might be what did I say? Advising. You can split up between, maybe this is just advising undergrads, and then you have a separate schedule for advising grads. You can do it again. Appointment duration you can set here. If this is where you would use if you're repeating. So I want it available Tuesday from 2:30 to 3. And you can set different hours. You can add more or less, maybe another time appointment slot, 2:30 from 4:30 to 5. And you can change those hours. You can change the days, add or subtract. But then you could go down here and you can, which one is it? Just, you can kind of specify individual dates and times. So I can add in like another specific one, August 23rd, and I can add in a block of time just for that kind of one-off, where up here it just repeats. This will be weekly, or whatever you set the repetition level to. Repeat weekly, does not repeat. Or you can set individual ones down here. So, I have this large block of time. Scheduling window, this is when they can actually choose those schedules. So right now, by default, it's 60 days to 4 hours. So that means if they go into this schedule, they won't be able to do it unless they're within this window. So they can't schedule a meeting more than 60 days out, and they have to schedule at least 4 hours in advance in order to do that. Let's jump through the rest of these, your description, your save. We've got these meetings. Now you want to actually share it with your students so they can get in and do that. What does that look like? If you click on any of these, click on these, you click the share button. And we want, where are the two? The single booking page, and then you copy link. Okay, what does that look like if you do that? Here's what it'll look like when your students get it. So apparently I was in a different week. Oh, there it is. I was in the week ahead. And this is what it'll look like. So you can take that link, you could throw it into a Moodle shell, you can send it out in an email, they'll click on it, and then they can click on these individuals and schedule that time. It'll send then a reminder email, it'll send you an email saying this time has been taken. When you go into your calendar and look at it, it'll show the person that's chosen that. If you have email verification turned on, that was one of the options I kind of skipped over for some time for that. If you have more questions, let me know. I'm sorry I didn't get to go through like all the nitty-gritty details of that, but yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.